I'm going to be honest with you, grand strategy nerds. Paradox has fallen. I know it's so over, but hey, now that all history artists are going to have to get a real job now, I say why not look back at Crusader Kings 2 and what made it a great game compared to Crusader Kings 3. Now, for all those unenlightened people who do not know what Crusader Kings series is, well, they are games that center around you and your family trying to survive the medieval times, while having some fun with court intrigue, going on crusades, and killing your brother for his land. Also, if you're like me and a Swedish nationalist, colonizing those evil Finns. Wait, if there is a Crusader Kings 2 and a Crusader Kings 3, then shouldn't there be a Crusader King? Shh! We don't talk about Crusader Kings 1, okay? Now that I explained what the Crusader Kings series is, I'm going to tell you why this game, which I spent a little bit of time on, is so good and why it mogs Crusader Kings 3. First, I'm going to talk about sound design. Hey, no, wait, it won't be boring, trust me. So, sound design is really important for a video game and really any media. So when you have bad sound design, it can take people out of the experience. But when it comes to Crusader Kings 2, it has really good sound design. Anytime you go into a new window, you hear a unique sound for that window. Or when you take an action like going to war, which you can hear a little letter being written, which I always thought was cool. When games do little stuff like that, really helps you get immersed in the experience. Music is also really good and can really change the mood on how you're playing the game. All this makes, in my objectively right opinion, Crusader Kings 2 great, and something that Crusader Kings 3 fundamentally lacks, with its music being boring and its sound design as well, and what I believe starts to make some people get bored of the games later on. The game as well has a lot more historical events which can happen. I have seen Paradox starting to add some more historical events to Crusader Kings 2, but not really in the same way as Crusader Kings 3. For example, in one of my Crusader Kings 2 games, I had the Children's Crusade happen, and it was surprisingly successful, with a member of House Stuart leading Jerusalem. This was really cool because if you were like me as a kid, you used to watch alternative history videos, and that's what got you into the deep, dark rabbit hole called grand strategy games. You also probably always wondered what if the good guys won the war. You know, that one war in Europe, England was in it. Yeah, that's right, the 1066 invasion of England. My boy Howard Godwinson should have won that war. I'm glad that that horse killed William. A big problem I found with Crusader Kings 3 is that the game, it feels like it's designed to be a Reddit meme game. Like, you'll get a bunch of events which are funny at first, but honestly after the 1,000th time they're just plain boring. Like with the events of Royal Court or with the Masturbator event. The thing is, I'm pretty sure this is how it's meant to be. I'm almost 100% certain that the devs made the game with the idea that you were going to go on Reddit and post your funny moments on there to get the game more noticed. Which is okay, but when it seems like that's the game's whole purpose, it can make it seem pretty bad. Now, I know some of you are going to say that CK2 had the same problem, but in my opinion, it didn't really have it, because those events were rare compared to Crusader Kings 3. Also, they could be turned off, for example with the supernatural events. To show you this comparison, I've only got the horse event once in my 700 hours of gameplay, which isn't a lot compared to probably some people watching this video, but again, comparing that to Crusader Kings 3, which I have 500 hours in, I got the Hag court event like unironically 1,000 times. Paradox has this weird thing of lately where it seems like they just hate war. I know, how unbased of them. But in all seriousness, I can't be the only one seeing this. Like, look at Victoria 3, which, to be fair, I haven't played yet, and I don't think I will anytime soon. In that game, there is no war. Well, there technically is war, but come on. look at this, it's not good. I'm going to say that this really started with Crusader Kings 3, which, if we were to compare it to Crusader Kings 2, would look the same, but if you look a bit deeper, there are some differences which do make it much better than Crusader Kings 3. One of those changes is morale, which they completely got rid of in Crusader Kings 3, and I honestly don't know why, because it just makes warfare about numbers. Which, to be fair, it was in Crusader Kings 2, but there has been times in CK2 where I've seen larger armies lose against smaller armies because the larger one had less morale. Another small thing is vassal levies, which I don't really think is as important compared to morale, but was, in my opinion, a good way of showing how the king-landed vassal relationship worked, being that the longer they were raised, the more they got mad at you. Also, a bit of a nitpick here, but honestly, they really need to add back the ability to make AIs attached to your army. Like Paradox, I know you're trying to make the AI more independent and intelligent here, but I'm going to be real with you. I have had times when I was playing Crusader Kings 3 and I was in a battle, and all I needed was the AI to join me to help, but they had a little panic attack and then they just joined the battle too late. Or we'll be sieging a province and I have took my castle, so I go and move to somewhere else, and the AI that is just 2 days away from taking their castle just leaves to follow me. I fucking love that when that happens, because I'll be having to wait for the AI to finish sieging down the territory, and while I'm waiting, the enemy is taking my capital, killing my women, and taking my sheep. You know, Crusader Kings 2 is a pretty hard game still. I find myself at times in some pretty difficult situations when playing. Of course, when you start to get bigger and stronger, it gets easier, but it's really the journey that makes it worth it. But with Crusader Kings 3, it feels like it's impossible to lose. Your wife usually gives you like 500 children, which would normally be a problem with succession, but you can just disinherit most of them, which makes the game easier. Your kids also die way less than what even happened at the time, when it wasn't uncommon for newborns not to reach the age of 5, even for royal families who would have had better medical care than most people at the time. It just seems like they're trying to make the game as easy as possible, with them adding adoption and landless gameplay, which will soon come about. Which, I'm going to be fair here, I do think is a pretty cool idea, but with the knowledge that now having no land is going to not be a way to lose the game, it's going to make it really hard to lose. Because after a good amount of time in the game, your dynasty usually gets pretty big, so having your entire dynasty die out gets pretty impossible. Now, you may think, isn't it kind of a good thing to not have lose conditions in game, because it makes it less frustrating when you really do lose? And while yeah, I've definitely thrown gamer tantrums anytime I've lost a Crusader Kings 2 game, I'm going to be honest with you and say that having it so that you can lose in a game is a really big motivator, as it makes situations where you're in a war and you could lose all your land really feel like life or death. Now, you may be wondering, my good friend, how did it get like this? Well, despite me meat-riding Crusader Kings 2 harder than your mom does to me, it all started with Crusader Kings 2. You see, the game with no DLC is as unplayable as Crusader Kings 2 with no mods. And if you wanted to get all the DLCs for the game, you would have to pay £133 and 34p, or get the subscription, or just pirate it. Although, from what I can see, this is going to be a problem soon with Crusader Kings 3, but to be fair, probably it'll be much longer until then, because if you look at it and its DLC releases compared to CK2, it is much longer. Well, back to shitting on Crusader Kings 3 here, because its DLCs are also more isolated from each other, like with Royal Courts or with the Struggle DLCs. The
The reason they can do this is because they hold a monopoly over the grand strategy gaming market. So they know they can make half-finished games and make people pay £10 to £20 for DLC to add in essential features. And until some good games come out not from Paradox, then it's going to be like this for the foreseeable future. But hey, you shouldn't be surprised. They are Swedish after all, and they really do love their money. What, you thought I was some Swedish nationalist? Nah, I'm a proud Finn. Glory to Greater Finland.